I find it extraordinary. I mean, there is so much to say about it, Andrew. I'm not sure we have time. So, so he's gone to the House of Lords. I mean, it's so easy for someone who went to Eton to be just popped into the House of Lords overnight. But if you went to a council school in Halewood and Liverpool, in a secondary modern, it's not so easy. And it's and that sounds like sour grapes to me, and it isn't really. He's an ex-Prime Minister who had a long career as leading the party. But the issues with this are David Cameron he's been made Foreign Secretary. He went to the EU to get some concessions to try and prevent a referendum. He failed. The referendum happened. It was incredibly divisive. He wrongly, as a Prime Minister, nailed the government's colours to the mast of Remain. Remain lost, and then he took his bat and ball home and resigned, which he should never have done. And then David Cameron, who had once predicted that the next big scandal would be a lobbying scandal, was the architect of the next lobbying scandal with all the Green Still text and issues that he had. And I think what this is about really is rehabilitating David Cameron. It's rehabilitating his image so that he could get into the Lords.
But why should Rishi Sunak want to do that?
It's utterly bizarre, because I can tell you what's happening in the Conservative Party right now. It is agog and it is angry. Lots of those MPs in those red wall seats, the vast majority of them, David Cameron means nothing to them. They weren't even interested in politics when he was Prime Minister, but they have won seats back from Labour that have been Labour for generations. The whole image of somebody from a privileged background just being popped into the Lords and popped into a Secretary of State's job without a moment's... When we've got a cabinet full of people and a parliamentary party full of people who've been working very hard for years, who just think, hang on, are we not good enough? So that the messaging, whether it's from the privileged background, whether it's from how the process has just happened, whether it's from people in the party who are saying, but we've been serving in cabinet for years.
And what about the other side of this story, which is the sacking of Suella Braverman?
Well, that's part of it as well. So, the sacking, the whole right of the party, Remain has now moved into, it's kind of like Remain Central again. David Cameron has come in, and most of these MPs from the red wall seats are not. I think Victoria Atkins, who I like very much and I admire very much, but is very much a strong Remainer, has been made Health Secretary, but I'm sure she will do a very good job. But there's this division. What Rishi has done today is open divisions even wider in the party. And, how many reiterations of conservatism can we go through in one parliament? Boris Johnson delivered 365 MPs, the biggest vote share, a bigger vote share than Tony Blair did in 97. And with a manifesto, and people went out and voted for it. And then Rishi came in and was the change candidate and provided, and now we're going through another change. How many times can we say to the public, oh, actually, this is who we are? But how do we do that? We can't expect people to say, well, yeah, but we voted for a different party back in 2019 and you've changed yourselves twice since.
And this evening, Conservative MPs on the right of the party are gathering together to decide what to do, and by some reports to ask whether they should try and have another leadership challenge with Suella Braverman, which to a lot of people, yet another leadership challenge seems completely bonkers.
Bonkers, mad. I mean, they can do it, but it won't work. They can try it and it just went. But, what have they got to lose? I mean, literally, the party is broken. What have they got to lose?
So I want to ask you about the party, because I started off earlier on. I was reading out a paragraph from your book in which you're talking to a senior Conservative grandee about all the sort of sex rumours and stuff. And he says, do you know what? The whole thing is broken. The principles, the values, the parameters, they have all gone. This is not the party I recognise. And then right at the end of the book, you're interviewing Boris Johnson again. And he says, I don't understand. There is no vision for growth. There is no direction. I don't understand. Where do you think the Conservative Party has got to now?
So it's not governing, and that is the problem. So it's all about personalities. It's all about this group of men who actually control the Conservative Party. For them, it's about power, it's about influence, it's about connections to money, and that's the driving force, and that, in its own way, is about personalities and feeding on the ambitions of some very disturbed people. What it's not about is providing a vision for the future, for the people. It's not about saying to people in their homes, here is how we're going to provide you with a really good energy policy that's going to bring down your bills. Here's how we deal with cost of living. There's no infrastructure vision. There's an NHS that we've never ever reformed. I watched West Streeting on the television this morning talking about reform of the NHS. We haven't even dared to talk about that. We haven't even dared to do that. Social care, that was reformed.
That's gone now.
Boris Johnson had that. It was due to be launched the next month. It would have cost only £1 billion between 23 and 24. Rishi Sunak he threw it out as soon as he got into power. That's just, we have nothing to offer the country
do you think,
in terms
Nadine,
of governing rather than personalities.
So if you've got nothing to offer the country in terms of governing, do you think, as a lifelong Conservative, we've got to the stage where actually the country needs to see a Labour government?
Oh, Andrew, I know you and I have been having a conversation off, but I am a lifelong Conservative, and I've suffered for being a Conservative. I come from the poorest council estate in Liverpool. I was born on Breck Road in Anfield. I had to borrow shoes to go to school. I know what hunger is like. I have sacrificed a huge amount, including having the entire establishment pile in on me on a regular basis because I'm an outspoken working class and I'm not supposed to be there. I was never supposed to be that person. And so to abandon what I have suffered for so many years would take a lot. But, like George Osborne, I do believe that Rachel Reeves will make a really good Chancellor. And I have no fear of somebody like Rachel Reeves.
Will, not might.
Will, yeah, I'm very sure she will. And I have, because Rachel came in 2010, I think, and she's a really nice person. And that might sound like a trite word to use, but for me, the qualities of the individuals are important too.
So you think, looking at the spectrum, what's going on in politics at the moment, we are at a transition moment and a Labour government is coming in?
Oh, I don't think there's anyone doubts that. Unless, of course, I am totally wrong. And Rishi Sunak is absolutely right. And by doing what he's done today, that we will suddenly see a rise in the polls. Who knows? It might happen. It might happen. People may think, we supported David Cameron for 11 years. He did have support. Maybe that's going to make a difference. In my heart, I don't think so. It wouldn't make a difference for me. But maybe I'm just too close to the centre and I know what's going on.
Let me talk about the central theme of this book. You call it The Plot. Mm-hmm. And it's that a group of mostly quite shadowy figures, though Michael Gove, who isn't shadowy, as it were, is one of them, who's very well known, conspired to get rid of Boris Johnson and then get rid of Liz Truss and have their eye on Rishi Sunak as well these days. Can you describe what this group of people are, where they came from, what kind of people they are?
Well, can I just correct you on that? Because it's, as the book shows, they decided on Rishi Sunak being Prime Minister 7 years ago. And as the book also highlights in an interview with Laura Kunsberg, Dominic Cummings admitted that the day after Boris Johnson was made Prime Minister, the move started to get him out. Rishi Sunak was always the project. David Cameron had been the original project until he sacked Michael Gove and demoted him to Chief Whip. That's when the problems began for David Cameron. So the individuals, there's a guy called Dougie Smith. Some people call him, I think you call him Doogie Smith. There's a guy called Dougie Smith. He used to be in an organisation which was the Federation of Conservative Students. They were
Norman Tebbit tried to close that down.
He did close them down. Sadly, they learnt from that. They learnt to go under the radar and to be secretive. And they learnt a lot from Norman Tebbit closing them down. I mean, this group of people, which Dougie Smith, who's now at Rishi's right-hand side, someone I've had to codename Dr. No to get round libel laws, who is also at Rishi's right-hand side, Dominic Cummings, who is very much still there, and Michael Gove was, around at the time. These people they wanted the legalisation of paedophilia. They wore Nelson Mandela T-shirts. They wanted a full liberalisation of drugs.
So they're extreme libertarians rather than conservatives.
They are on the extreme end of the libertarians. I mean, you couldn't get much further.
And is Michael Gove one of them?
Michael Gove was a part of that group and has been and is very close to them. I said that, Michael Gove said to Dermot, he was responsible, the plotter. He wasn't even MP at the time, but part of the plot to move Ian Duncan Smith. And they did that very successfully. They were all involved. One of the things I didn't know in my book, actually, was I talk about how a group of men go to see Duncan Smith at his home and tell him he needs to be leader and they will kind of make it happen and what he has to do. What I didn't know at the time was that one of them was Dougie Smith. They didn't get confirmed to me after the book had gone to the printers.
The same Dougie Smith who calls up Boris Johnson at one point and says, "You've got to get out, we're going to get you out. And if you leave now, number 10 now, you can maybe come back, but otherwise we will destroy you."
We may let you come back. They are the important words. Not I, we may let you come back. That's the confidence. I think they kind of overstepped their mark with Boris Johnson because it was so bizarre. They're so out of control now. But those words for me, and Dominic Cummings' words, we knew we had to get rid of him as soon as he became Prime Minister. He did his job for us. He got the big majority. We had to remove him. So, they kind of themselves, they draw the lines between their own conversations.